I am totally astounded with the latest analytics we've received on the Odyssey House Journals podcast. If you had to take a guess, Chase, what country would you think would be the top country to listen or watch these podcasts?
I mean, since we're based in America, I'd probably say America, but perhaps Canada?
What you said would be a logical conclusion, but the number one country with our recent podcasts is the United Kingdom.
Oh.
So there's more people in the United Kingdom watching or listening to these than there is in the U.S. And then number two is Brazil.
Oh.
And number three is Germany.
Oh. Yeah, so we're worldwide.
I wish I knew why.
Yeah.
I mean, so welcome all of you in all those other countries. And so I guess around the world, we've even heard that we have people in Ukraine and Russia, even though the war is going on. Oh. So I didn't mean to scare you with how widespread this is. But you know what it indicates is the fact that addiction doesn't matter where you live, what your socioeconomic status is, what language you speak, what religion you practice. Addiction exists all over the world. So maybe that's why we have people all over the world watching or listening. So I want to welcome you all to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm your host, Randall Carlisle. Our guest is Chase today, a person in recovery who has gone through addiction and can pretty much and hopefully help all of us to stay sober or get sober, or if we have loved ones, to find out what kind of thinking goes into getting sober. So thank you for being here and being willing to share your journey. And maybe I should ask you, how did all your problems begin? Do you know?
I mean, like, to be honestly speaking, a lot of it stemmed from childhood. Grew up in a very, very highly dysfunctional family. My father was out of the picture by the time I was about 3 years old, and my mother was into drugs. She was a heavy methamphetamine user. So that led to a lot of moving, a lot of financial, unstable financially. There was a lot of arguments, a lot of fighting. There's severe child abuse in the household. A lot of it was sexual too. She just seemed to disconnect from being a mother at some point. So growing up, I kind of thought, what's a way that I can get away from this situation, or how to numb, because I wasn't able to really, as a kid, we don't really go to therapy, especially in the early 2000s when I was growing up. Therapy wasn't very prevalent as it is now. So a lot of it was, I would say, escapism. Escapism was the biggest part that got me onto the path of addiction. I figured this substance right here, like drinking, it helps me forget what's happening to me. It helps me be okay with what's happening to me, and it's readily available. My mom wasn't really around a lot. When she was strung out. So it was easy for me to have access to alcohol. It was easy for me to have access to drugs. It was easy for me to get into that lifestyle because it's something that I knew.
How young were you when you started doing that?
I started drinking when I was about 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I started doing the harder drugs. I mean, it started with pot at the beginning, about 12, and then up until I would say maybe 14 or 15. That's when I started getting into cocaine. That's when I started getting into ecstasy. That's when I started doing pain pills at the same time. Just anything I could really get my hands on, because I lived in Kearns, Utah for a long time, and I guess some people consider that to be the bad neighborhood, but it's lower income areas, so sure. There's a lot of access to just a lot of different types of drugs and a lot of I wouldn't say alternative lifestyles, but not cut and dry lifestyles.
Now, I've always wondered, when you're growing up like that and you see your mother behaving like that, did you think, do you talk to other kids and say, does your mom do meth? Or, did you know, or did you think that was just the way all households are?
Well, for a long time, I thought it was the way all households were, because I could tell, for me personally growing up, I had 2 moms. I'd have a mom that was weirdly attentive. She would be up all night. I wouldn't say she was like necessarily a better caretaker, but she was a lot more attentive. And then I'd have the mom that would sleep all day, have the mom that was angry at all times, the mom that let our house get dirty. So it was almost like I was raised by two separate moms at the same time. So I just assumed that's all households were, like that's all adults were, because in the area that I lived in, she had a lot of friends we lived in a cul-de-sac, and a lot of her friends were addicts too. So I assumed that almost all of my adult interaction that I saw was in and around drugs. So I just thought it was normal.
Wow. Did you talk to other kids about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have my kids that I went to school with, but then I would kind of my mom was very, very into telling us, like, if you tell people about what's going on, then they're going to split up our family. So we used to have many DCFS cases, because I remember there was one time that one of her and her boyfriends, they took like a vacuum cord from vacuum cleaner and like whipped my back a whole bunch.
Oh.
So I went to school and I had a whole bunch of marks on my back. So when my teacher found out DCFS came over, and my mom was like, don't tell them anything. They're going to split you and your brother and your sister away. Just say you were climbing a tree. So I was always like on the fear that if I was to come out and say a lot of this, then we were going to separate as a family, because I didn't know any better. You kind of get conditioned for it.
Sure. Huh. That's sort of a sad way to grow up. How did it progress then? How old are you now?
I'm 27.
27. So all through your teenage years and everything, how long did you stay in the house, and what happened to you after that?
A lot of it too was I had a lot of support from my grandparents. They weren't super aware of what was going on, but my mom had breast cancer. She ended up having breast cancer. She ended up getting really sick, so we moved in with my grandparents. So nice. I think I was like maybe about 13 years old. So that's when we started getting a lot of stability in the area. She was still there's a lot of times that I considered my mom to be like basically an older sister, because she didn't work for years. She never really helped me with a lot of things. My grandparents were very stable, so I was able to kind of stay for them. But there was still a part of me that was very angry, was very afraid of adult interaction. Like, by being sexually abused as a kid, I assumed that all adults were out to get me. It made me I didn't like being touched. I still don't like being touched in general. So
Really?
Yeah, it's big fear of mine, because I just can't get into that where I can trust people 100%. When I actually got in my first long-term relationship, me and my girlfriend, we used to not sleep in the same bed for a long time, because I'd get night terrors about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really, really bugged me. But I had the stability of my grandparents. I was into sports, but also I had a lot of mental illness that I had to get through. I had PTSD, I had severe anxiety, and I had ADHD. And my mom never took me to go get that checked out, because she thought, if there's something wrong with my kid, then I'm a bad parent. My kid can't have ADHD, because that's mental illness, and that means that I was a bad parent and people will know. So I had rampant ADHD. Just growing up, I was always bouncing on the walls. I was always in trouble for talking and moving. Sure. So it was really hard to get, I was very, very smart, very gifted in a lot of things in high school, but it was the paying attention. It was showing up to class. It was doing drugs. I thought that my time, I didn't graduate high school because of my attendance. I had college credits and everything, because I was taking AP classes, but I just didn't show up. So there was not a lot of negative repercussions for not showing up, because my mom didn't care.
Right.
She was either sick or she was on the drugs.
Wow. So what happened in your life between when you went through, so you're living with your grandparents, you didn't graduate from high school, but so what did you end up doing until now?
Yeah, honestly, I just ended up working from job to job. There are some times when I was my mental health was getting really, really bad. So I ended up staying at the University of Utah Medical Center for on and off stints. I was working just menial jobs here and there. I'd work at UPS, or I'd work in just warehouses, stay there for a couple months, get a new job, don't have a job for a couple months, and then just kind of here and there, all while using and getting more into the music culture. The way I got introduced to music culture was through going to raves and through going to punk shows. I used to be in a punk band in high school, so a lot of my money was spent on concert tickets, and then what happened to be drugs. So I was just kind of just off and about doing whatever I could do to kind of get into I wasn't comfortable with myself. I wasn't comfortable with how my life was going until about, I want to say 5 years ago, I was able to, right during COVID, I was able to get a job and I locked in on that job. I became the warehouse manager that year. I ran a program of 60 people for the better part of 5 years. But in those 5 years, my addiction got a lot worse. I justified it to myself. I was able to move out. Me and my sister got an apartment together. But since I was making really good money, I was able to pay my bills. I was able to have a car. I was able to have everything. So I justified that in myself by saying, I'm not an addict. I drink because I work 12 hours a day. Everyone can do this. It's okay if I buy a little bit of cocaine because, I've had a tough time at work. I need to keep going. I need to be dependable. I'm paying my bills, so I'm not like them. Yeah, it was just that rabbit hole you get yourself into,
Mine was exactly the same. I remember arguing with each of my 4 wives, saying, well, okay, I do drink a lot, but I make really good money. We're living in a nice house. I have a prestigious job, so don't worry about it.
Exactly.
And other people, like because I remember my parents took me on a trip to New York. I grew up in a little town in Ohio. They took me to New York, and I remember when I was maybe 10, 11, and I saw people sitting on subway steps with brown bags, and they'd open a bottle of probably fortified wine or whatever, take a swig, put it back in, and then a couple minutes later do the same thing. And to me, that was an alcoholic. Okay, so just like you say, you separated yourself because of what you did and, with the job and what you were accomplishing. And my mom or my wives would say, you're an alcoholic. And I'd say, no. The alcoholic is that guy sitting on the street corner with a brown bag. But we're all the same.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's like one of the biggest parts that I find in my journey is that I can justify anything. I can justify any single action that I do because of avoid it's because my childhood was messed up. It's because I didn't take responsibility doing this. Oh, it's because I have ADHD. I could just find reason after reason. Oh, I pay all your bills. Like a lot of it is I'd help my sister pay her bills in a way to kind of make sure that she'd get off my back about my drinking, like if she's dependent on me financially too, then I can go buy that 12-pack every day after work. I can go on my lunch breaks and get beer. I can go and buy those drugs because I am what I would think would be successful when I'm just avoiding the fact that I'm an alcoholic. I was that person that was like, oh, I'm the party guy, like I'm just here for a good time. I still get everything done. It's still okay for me, but to just realize like slowly that I could not stop drinking. I could not. I always thought that maybe I wasn't would get withdrawals or anything, but like my day would be terrible. I'd find ways to get money just to drink, and my day would not be complete without drinking.
Same here.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like taking steps towards just a goal is like I always knew I was going to get drunk that day. That was always going to be my goal no matter how I did it. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's just what adults do. I did not know that that's not how I didn't really have a normal family structure growing up. So I didn't know that, oh, you're not supposed to drink every day. I just thought that was how people handled their lives.
Well, if you look at movies and TV shows and everything, it's very common for people at the end of the day to have some drinks when they come home. I mean, even a conservative show, I don't know if you've ever watched Blue Bloods.
Oh, yeah.
But the police commissioner and his dad sit down and drink scotch every night when they sit down and talk, And so it's easy to see how you could call yourself normal, which I did, which you apparently did, but it is a disease, And maybe they only had one scotch, but that would not have been my case.
Yeah.
It's like, you said buying a 12-pack, and then I used to buy, what do they sell, 35-pack, a big...
Yeah, one of those big boxes, yeah.
I used to buy that for the weekend so I didn't have to go out and drive drunk to get more beer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that was one thing that still astounds me now is how comfortable I was with driving drunk. Like, I never really, like, I was like, oh, I'm not that buzzed. You know, every single time that I would go somewhere, I was always drunk, like, just drunk enough. You know, you get into that time where once you've been drinking for prolonged periods of time, you know your capabilities, you know. So I was like, oh, I'm not that drunk. I'm not that high. I can go manage to do it. So it was like, I find out that I'm drinking, like, I'm driving drunk almost every single time I operate a motor vehicle, you know, and I didn't think that it was, I knew when I was too drunk to drive.
Right.
But I never considered that just like, oh, you know, you're not supposed to polish off like 3 beers before you go to the movies, you know, like you're not supposed to do that. And a lot of the other part of like what really got me into the later stages of my addictions is I picked up DJing at a bar. I picked up, just DJing at bars and DJing at shows and concerts in which drugs and alcohol are prevalent. That was part of my
perfect job.
Yeah, perfect job. But part of my paycheck, I was making about $25 an hour, and then for 4 or 5 hours, and then I was getting like $150 bar tab. So I was getting, so it was never any chance.
See, that doesn't work out right.
When I started that, when I was able to, one of my friends, he actually got the job first, and I was 20 years old. But if you walk in with music equipment into anywhere, they do not check your ID, you know.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, so it was very easy for me to just enter the venue, and then that was for 5 years straight. I was working every Friday and Saturday night, sometimes Sunday nights, and just constantly around alcohol. So it was like I drank before the show, I drink at the show, and then I'd invite people back over to my house to hang out, and then just drink, wake up, stay up all night because I was using a heavy amount of cocaine during that time. I was using an awful amount, and just stay up all morning, maybe eat something, then right back to it. Yeah. So it's like I didn't give myself a chance.
We had the program director of our adolescent facility on several weeks ago, and he said the majority of kids, and they take kids 13 through 17, are there because of severe trauma in their past, and that for whatever way they're trying to numb their feelings, through cutting or drugs or alcohol or whatever. And that's pretty much, I mean, you had I hate to say it, a miserable childhood.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and it was totally abnormal. And it's pretty understandable that you enjoyed numbing yourself so you didn't have to deal with it. What then brought you into treatment?
I'd say a lot of that had to do with after having my stable job, I got into a situation where I ended up selling coke. You know, it was very, very profitable. I could keep the hours I wanted. I could do what I needed to. But then, like, what I came to realize is it's what I was using to survive as a child, those coping skills, which were terrible coping skills, but they no longer fit my needs. You can only get so high, or you can only get so drunk to get away from your problems. You know, you can only do so much. And then a big thing of mine was I wanted to be more dependable than my parents were. But I thought that being dependable was just a financial basis, you know, like in America, especially in a hyper capitalistic society, we're only based on our merits by what we can provide. You know, as long as I'm making money, I need to shut up, I need to be miserable, you know, and when it comes to, unfortunately, being a man that has been sexually abused, which happened, like I'm bisexual too, which happened to be abused, I was taught growing up that I just had to swallow that down. You know, therapy wasn't for men. Men don't cry. Men just have to be strong pillars of society.
Buck up, buddy.
Yeah, essentially. You know, like.
Okay,
so,
that happened years ago. So
yeah. So get over it. There's other problems. Go to work. You know, like that was a big part of it. It's like, oh, I'm sorry that you have night terrors every night. You know, wake up, go to work. You know, don't talk about it. You know, until it just got to a point where mentally, like, I felt so disconnected from myself. Like I disassociated for months on end. I could have an entire week and then not tell you anything that I did. I was going to work. I was still drinking and stuff, but I just did not. I disassociated from my life to such a scary standpoint that I just could not. I didn't feel like I was living my life. It got to a point where I was actually scared that I was like, I wouldn't necessarily say psychosis, but I didn't think I was an actual person.
Wow.
Yeah, so I ended up seeking help in March I was able to get started in treatment, went to recovery ways. Was able to get in there for about a month, and it was, one thing I realized about that is a month is not long enough,
No.
that
Look at how many years you've been doing what you were doing.
you can't break that habit. You can't break that habit in a month. And it's just like the realization, it was great for getting a start in therapy. It was better for me. I was able to kind of pinpoint a couple problems that I had that I needed to work on. I was able to get a little bit more comfortable with talking about issues. But overall, like a month was not long enough. I didn't do any IOP. Immediately after that, I'd say like I relapsed in 2 weeks. Because I stopped going to meetings. I stopped being around my community. I stopped being around everything that I needed. So then for about 3 months afterwards, it was just back to drinking. And the one thing I did learn about relapsing is once you relapse, you actually drink a lot more. You do a lot more drugs. It's like you're making up for lost time.
Or you're so ashamed of what you did. You say, well, screw it. I screwed up, so I might as well just screw up better.
Oh, yeah. And it's always the scary part when you're telling people are proud of you that you got out of treatment. And then you go from just drinking and not caring to drinking and being sneaky about it, being sneaky about it, and that causes you to drink more, causes you to do more drugs while you can, so that was for the couple months. And then I ended up coming to Odyssey just based on the fact that like I knew it was going to be, I needed more structure. I needed more drive in my life. I needed to actually take the time to pinpoint what was wrong with me over the course of more than a month.
Right.
And I knew the program was about 3 months minimum, which I was perfectly fine with, but I never thought that I'd be able to learn so much by just interactions with other people. It's more of like, I feel like I learned a lot more from other people than I do from just the program in itself, because there's so many different people, so many different ways of thinking how for the same problem, we all have the same common problem, but the solutions vary from person to person.
So it's working for you. How long? So what level are you at, and when do you expect to get out?
So hopefully, if my fingers crossed, I get to be a navigator today. Yeah, that's my goal.
For those of you watching, that's the highest level you can get to in our residential houses.
I'm hoping to be. So last week there was a little bit of a problem, so I wasn't able to move up. So this week I'm hoping that everything ice over. So I'm hoping to be out before Thanksgiving. That's about the time frame I was going to give myself, was about 4 or 5 months tops, because I'm not necessarily in a rush, but like I have to, like, holidays are really important for me with my grandma and my niece and stuff like that. So I feel like, and plus it's the time that I enjoy the most. So I've never had holidays sober. So I'm very excited to kind of see how it is. And I know it's going to be hard.
Oh, yeah, because I always looked at, like Thanksgiving, I think it was my favorite holiday because you could start drinking early in the morning while other people are preparing the turkey and all that kind of stuff. And then you got football to watch, and you just sit around and you could drink all day. And by the time we had dinner, I could barely remember what we had or what we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
So the first time you go through it sober, it's sort of like, that's different.
This is interesting, like, and it's like a lot of times I don't think my family really knows the sober me that much because I've just been in such the same headspace. So I'm excited to actually be an active participant and not just be able to not remember it. So that's my goal. And then obviously get into IOP, just kind of get into sober living, stay in the community. Because that's one thing I realized is like I am nothing without my community.
Yeah.
I have to stay in the community. I have to, even though I don't want to. Sometimes I like to isolate, but I find there's a good difference between solitude and isolation. The solitude everyone needs and everyone deserves to take some time for themselves to be able to sit back, relax, be by yourself, enjoy your own company. But then when you continue to do this while pushing everything else aside to get into that isolation.
That's a good way of looking at it, because I always wonder sometimes if I enjoy sitting home by myself and watching a TV show or something, and is that dangerous for me? And I like your explanation.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. How are you going to, you mentioned Kearns. Are you going to be back in that area?
I'm actually hoping to stay in the downtown area. I find that.
But there's drugs everywhere.
Yeah, there's going to be drugs everywhere. But a lot of my dealing, a lot of the shady situations that I got myself into is over in that side of the valley.
Okay.
I didn't really come down to downtown quite a bit. It's mostly when I was dealing and stuff like that, I was afraid of legal repercussions, so I'd stay in my house a lot. You know, I always assumed that someone was watching me, that the cops were looking for me. So I was very, very set into going to like this one bar, staying at home. If I needed to go out and get something, I'd just have someone else do it for me. You know, so it's like the Kearns, West Valley, Taylorsville, Sandy area of Salt Lake City that's the area where I know the most people.
Okay.
So downtown is more of a fresher area because I'm not familiar with the downtown area at all.
Okay.
You know, I'm very familiar with being in, like, I would not necessarily say the drug community, but there's a community of people that do drugs. But I'm not familiar with how things operate down here, and I know it's very easy to get drugs anywhere. So, you know, it's super, super easy to get drugs. I could walk 5 minutes in any direction from here and find exactly what I want.
Right.
You know, that's just how it is. But I feel like if I get into an environment where things are a little bit newer, I'm more excited to, you know, there's new restaurants to try. There's new, I'm Buddhist, so I believe in a lot of like very spiritual person when it comes to those aspects. And they always have something going on downtown.
Sure.
There's always something. There's cooking classes. There's book clubs. There's so much stuff to occupy my time because most of my hobbies are centered around alcohol. They're centered around drugs. If I can do it when I messed up. You know, so it's to be able to experience all of these new things that gives me that anticipation and the dopamine hit that I want from doing drugs.
Getting it naturally.
Yeah, you know, like experiencing a new coffee shop and telling your friends about it. Sure. You know, just hanging out with a whole bunch of people that you never really would, because I always thought that people that weren't drinking and weren't doing drugs were squares. You know, I have nothing in common with these people, even though I like the exact same things they like, you know, like, but I like them better because I have an ego and I'm on drugs, you know.
How are you doing with the touching thing, Al?
A lot of it is with the touching thing. For me personally, it's surrendering, not necessarily surrendering control. Like if I know that someone's going to be touching me, because I'm a human, I want affection. I enjoy it as much as I can, but like if I don't know someone's going to touch me, it scares me. So I've learned that setting healthy boundaries and a little bit of exposure therapy is helping me with I know that I no longer need to be scared, you know. Running away from these problems and running away from everybody that I want to get intimate with or just be either relationship wise or socially, they're not here. They're not going to hurt me. They don't want to hurt me.
So you can sleep with a friend now?
Yeah, I can sleep. Yeah, it took a while because a lot of it is night terrors. I have really, really bad night terrors. So like I'm afraid that like, oh, if someone like touches my shoulder, I'm sleeping, then I'm going to hit him. You know, so a lot of that was individual therapy, trauma therapy, medication for night terrors. You know, there's a lot of things, but it's just kind of getting into that area in which I know that not everyone that is out to get me, not every adult is scary. Not everyone has nefarious thoughts about me. You know, I have a theory that hate is really, really strong word. You know, to actually really hate someone takes effort, takes time. You got to wake up in the morning and say, I want nothing but the worst for them. So I think maybe on this planet, there's maybe like 5 people that actually hate me, you know? Most people, you're not a very important impact in their life.
And it varies on a scale, too.
Yeah, you know, like if you cut someone off and they honk at you, it's not that they don't like you, it's just you cut someone off, you know? Like my impact on other people's lives is so minuscule than what I thought it was, because it's that grandiosity, you know. It's I'm the top, you know. Everything I do only affects the people at that time and in that interaction.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting over that, and getting over my ego is a big part of it.
Good way of looking at it. Thank you for sharing your life with us. I appreciate that. You've been very raw and honest, and I hope for those of you watching around the world now, I didn't realize that. I hope that it gave you some insight into what addiction and mental health and everything else are all about. Thank you. You've been great.
Oh, no, I really appreciate it. It's good to be able to get out of this and just be able to talk about what's going on. You know, it's nice to know that people care.
Sure.
You know, especially people all over the world care. You know, as you said earlier, addiction is a worldwide problem. And I think the more we can connect with people, the more we can come to understand that together we're stronger.
Good way to put it. Thanks, Chase. And thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.